Welcome to episode 7 of Write In McMasters for Mayor. In this episode, I will be showing you or giving you the video from 2017. It's a flashback of me talking and addressing council. And the reason I pull it forward because it has a lot of the same elements that I plan to do when I do my video for you should expect in my next term as mayor. And that is that we're looking for police and fire services to be strong, we're looking for good roads and infrastructure, and lower income taxes as the fundamental element for economic development. And if you can't lower the income tax, at least make sure that we're spending our tax dollars wisely. All right. With that, I will tell you that I need you to like, comment, and share the video, and tell your neighbors about my write-in candidate for mayor. And with that, we'll head off to 2017. Have to give you a warning though. I do sometimes have stage fright, and it doesn't seem to make sense, but I think you can see a little bit of that in this presentation. And heads up, I didn't find the original presentation, but on the city's website, you can find copies of the presentation themselves. I will be interjecting it a little bit into the actual video so you can see the slides that I was presenting. However, they are cut off a little bit.
Hi, good evening, Council, and thank you very much for allowing me to present my vision of where we need to go in 2017, or at least part of it. And I definitely want to thank Ms. Burge for bringing up the suggestion. Out here, you'll see each of the elements that I intend to talk about a little bit tonight. They're all interrelated in one way or the other, but for the sake of the agenda, I've broken them out into three separate sections. When I first came into office here a couple years ago, I attended a first suburbs meeting, and one of the things that came out of that thing that we learned that safety services, roads, affordability, and schools are the main drivers for bringing people into a community. And I think that's some of the things that brought me into the community here in Huber Heights. And when I say roads, I'm talking about location, and how to get back and forth to work. And safety services, a lot have to do with the crime rate that you see there, and the fire services. And affordability, of course, is how much it costs to get you into your houses and the taxes you pay, and some of the other things that go along with the community. I don't particularly not going to talk too much about the schools, but we all know that they're a major driver into why people pick a community to live in. One of the things that I was kind of surprised about was that parks is on the list, but it's pretty far down in the list because to me, parks are something I enjoy and something I look at, but I don't actually know that I looked at it. I guess you just assume that a community is going to have parks. So I can see why people may or may not look at that specifically when they go in, but I think that most people expect there to be parks available when they need to talk about that. You'll see in this brief that I didn't specifically create slides for roads, affordability, or parks, but you can kind of judge where I'm going with those aspects by looking at the other two categories that I have in there. And so I'm start out here talking about police, fire, and EMS. You'll see that I put some bullet statements up there to kind of guide me in what I'm going to say. But one of the bullet statements that you could put first in there is reputation. Currently, the members of our police and fire departments have a stellar reputation without the community. And it's rightly deserved for both of those teams because each have members in there that show heroic qualities at times. I mean, I recall a incident a couple years ago where a member of our community killed their girlfriend, shot the girlfriend, and then was out hiding in a dark establishment. and our police officer went in and was able to apprehend that person, basically at his own peril. And we certainly recognize those heroics. And I'm pained each time that I think of the 10-year-old Miss Whetstone that lost her life in a home fire last year. But I know that I'm also touched by the selflessness that our first responders showed when they first got there. They entered the building and were able to save the other members of the family. And those kind of heroic deeds look really good to our residents. And they know that they can count on our safety services. But even though the departments are filled with heroes, we need to make sure they have the research and the compatriots to do a complete job. I recall riding over Menlo Park area after first getting elected, and one of the walkers right there walked up to the van and say, "I'm so glad that you got elected mayor because the crime rate here is terrible." And to me, that kind of caught me off guard because I didn't campaign at all on crime in the area. But I kind of took it to heart that a lot of the community, some of the community are worried about some of the areas, and I've actually had a lot of conversations where people pick that up. It's like when I was younger, I used to be able to leave my door unlocked, and now it's not that way. So one of the things that we need to make sure is to make sure we have good manning levels, to make sure that we can do as much policing as possible. But the other things that I point out here is that we've made a commitment here and shown a commitment this year to make sure that we have the equipment on hand. There, we've opened a new fire station, provided ambulance and fire engine. And one of the things that I'm happy to see has occurred here in the last couple of years is that we have reestablished our public relations officers in the police department that had gone away with some of the manning issues previously, and it's good to see that they've put on a couple dedicated police officers into that position, because I'm a big supporter of the Citizens Patrol Academy, Pride, and the Explorers. Excuse me. I may have to stick a piece of gum in my mouth here in a minute. Sorry. And to see that the Neighborhood Watch is back and up and interacting with the police department is all a plus for our neighborhoods. And the fire departments, with their pink ribbon campaign and some of the other outreach that they do, certainly makes our police and fire department stellar, and I hope to see that continue. But again, I think recent discussions on manning levels, we certainly need to move forward on our fire department request. All right, so most of the last part, or most of this is, Tom, you're boring. You just like police, fire, roads, and balance on the budget. But every now and again, I am a person that dreams and such, and so we'll go off into that area a little bit as well, especially because we own 80 acres of land right next to Gander Mountain, and we need to figure out what we're going to do with it and such. But this first slide here is actually one to show you some of the ways that even I can go off into pretty elaborate plans in my head and such. So with that, one of the first times I looked at the property was behind Lowe's, behind Kohl's, and you can see a little bit from these pictures that it really is a beautiful piece of property out there. There's a nice fall away in there, and I imagine having dinner in a nice restaurant on a deck in the back of here with my wife, and and having a prime rib and a glass of wine, because it just is that kind of atmosphere that you might be able to imagine. So in here, one of the things that I was wanted to convey here is the first 3 years that I lived here, we always went up to Miller Lane when we went out to eat, right? Because Miller Lane's set up at Restaurant Alley and such. But the the fact is, if you get off 202 and you start counting restaurants out there, I'll bet you don't have a large difference in the number of restaurants on 202 against what's in Miller Lane. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way it's set up and the way it's planned. And so, one of the things that I think about when I think about this whole property is, that what if those businesses weren't there and we had a whole big row of restaurants, and we could mimic that area right there. Could be like a Huber Heights, Miller Lane type thing. And then, I got all kinds of things. Well, what do you do? What if the music center had been put there and such, and then people could have listened to the concerts, and you got all kinds of stuff in that whole thing. And that would have, where would those restaurants or where would those businesses gone? Of course, I was thinking in the Heights and that kind of stuff. But that's a whole lot of thinking and maneuvering, and takes a whole lot of planning and such. And quite frankly, Huber Heights really is kind of a laissez-faire type of a community when it comes to businesses and where they locate. We let the business people make up their minds about where they want to go, and we pretty much have, and that's relatively pretty successful. And one of the things that really is kind of controlling in my thought about whether we should have a lot more planning or should have keep with the laissez-faire stuff was the debate a couple years ago where they were going to create a special taxing district around Miller Lane, where they wanted to have a special higher income tax there in order to help support that area. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if you have to have a special higher interest rate in that pre-planned development, that it's not taking care of you, like there, what's wrong with laissez-faire? So, fantasies, they'll come with dreaming. They're a lot of work, and if they don't produce lower tax rates, I'm not sure why you don't let the businesses pick where they want to go. So this slide here is just the advertisement of the previous owner, and we know the previous owner basically gave the property up for taxes. So you never know about their business plan, because I know the city made arrangements or made outreaches to them before we actually acquired it by taxes, and they were incredibly difficult to get a hold to or negotiate with or such. But I actually do like this advertisement because it kind of gives you an idea of the cost, and quite frankly, I think the cost per acre around the highway is more than $125,000, and you see the $15,000 an acre. That puts that property value somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 million. And one of the things, even with that right there, is there was more than $500,000 worth of taxes they were behind. So that actually put that property at $4 million they were trying to sell for in this advertisement. But the concept of getting office retail down there and maybe a senior or multifamily down on the inside makes a little bit of sense if you look at it. You're not going to have too much, but that also will let me say stuff like, that pond is a good place for fishing. Why don't you, when you start building there, make that a fishing pond, or why don't you put it in BMX for the community? And even though whoever buys it from us will have total say on that, maybe they'll pick up some of that, and we can make it even more beneficial for the city. And beside the 3.5 million, a plan like that gets us taxes and TIF dollars and such. So you have income tax and TIF dollars to help out there. So the other romantic I talk about, I think that 80 acres is doable for helping the city because we own it. But this other romantic thing we have has a lot to do with the fact that we have a couple romantic visions for the south of the city. You know, we have the town center thing that gets a lot of talk and has since I've been here. And, you know, when I think about what can happen with the city, I think bike paths. All right, and the uh, key being map key, to what I've drawn on here are those areas of the city that I think are essential to making the bike path concept work. And those are the solid green lines there. You'll see we already have a plan to take Chambersburg Road all the way out to 4. That right there, I think, is very beneficial to the city because it's a bike path that leads somewhere. All right. I can see that if that bike path were in there today, people that wanted to go over to Area A on the base would be buying houses over there because they have a romantic vision of biking to work, which I think would make all the houses along Chambersburg and uh, in the developments Artesian Way and and the other developments there. uh, Houses like there. And then the next key to that same thought pattern is Bellefontaine. You make a bike path on Bellefontaine, and then you bring in those developments as well, and you take that all the way up to Center Point 70, and then you have another class of people that can bike to work. All right, so I think those two on the east side of town certainly would help. But then you'll see that I've put in a solid green line there for Fishburg. And Fishburg, that has two key aspects to this plan. One of it is it takes you directly over to the Miami Valley bike areas right there. So lead somewhere. All right, I'm not a big fan of drive your car to walk or drive your car to bike. Now, you know, a lot of people do drive their car to a recreational area, but I prefer to bike so I can bike, uh, kind of a person. So I'd like to see that Fishburg Road go up there just because it leads to somewhere as well. But the other thing that I think about in there is it's hard to see on this map, but there's a yellow area outlined in there as well. And I think if you make that area into a bike, walking, scooter, golf cart friendly area, meaning that you have bike paths on the main roads and then allow those type of things on the interior roads so people can uh, scooter out to them, that you can make that area into a town center naturally by businesses taking advantage of the fact that people can get to the commercial areas on the outside. So you'll see in the right-hand picture, I've done that in pink. The, the pink would be the secondary roads. They're the primary roads that uh, I would like to see bike paths, but they would come after Fishburg, basically. All right, so you see Bellefontaine in there. And if you just imagine uh, one of the interior roads in there, hopping into Fishburg, which would have a bike or a scooter or a golf cart path, you can see how they could easily get to the post office or into any of the centers as well. And I think you would make those businesses a lot more likely to be able to pick up the kind of commercial areas where people that are older or younger would bike to. All right. So with that, how does that meld with the Brant Pike, which we're talking about as well? Well, of course, we're looking for the town center type concept in there. So it matches very well with creates a walkable environment and such, and increases diversity in residential commercial building. And I think it will come naturally after you've established your bike paths and such. The one that I'm a little concerned about is the one where we want to, and this, you don't see it in there, but they talk about making Brant Pike traffic calming. All right. So the good part are there. If you go into the Brant Pike revitalization slides that are at, help me out, Glenn. DiscoverBrantPike.com. You'll see a lot of the good slides. I wish that they had actually videotaped the presentation so you could actually listen to them, but you can see the slides and get a general idea of them. And you can see that they have good ideas for helping Brant Pike and the traffic flow and such, and we certainly would have to take consideration for some of those good ideas. The part that bothers me is that, I consider Brant Pike a thoroughfare to get me to work. All right, so I'm not a big fan of traffic calming to slow me down, so it takes another 15 or 20 minutes to get to work in there. And quite honestly, if we're looking to get more office space, corporate space, then those people are going to want to get to work even if it's on Brant Pike. So though I can see ways in which Brant Pike can be improved, I certainly hope we're not looking to slow traffic down on that street. And then the other strategy that they have in there is develop senior housing and facilities, and they pick those areas, I think, over by Good Samaritan, and that makes perfectly good sense in my idea where all those interior roads allow your older people to ride the scooters and golf carts, because that would complement the whole system. So I see a lot of ways to meld the two plans. The one part that I think that I hope gets real serious consideration is to take the ideas for traffic calming for Brant Pike and actually put them over on Bellefontaine. And if you do that, Bellefontaine is going to need a means to actually get closer and further, back and forth more efficiently. So you would actually, by this traffic calming plan, actually make it more faster than what it is, and allow the development to go along that street as well. So you can see that a lot of the ideas for a neighborhood center would actually grow up around that area a lot faster if you did the plan, the pictures for Brant Pike and Bellefontaine, and it helps all get to work faster with that, and includes a bike path, which gets us all the way basically from Kittredge. So people could do that up to Center Point 70 and stuff. So I hope we turn a little bit of that discussion in that direction. Okay, so that was the fun part. All right, the dreaming part, the parts that actually cost money and take a lot of work to get going and planning. So back to Tom's reality, and that we start out with the first priorities. I'm simple. It's you start with fire, start with police, start with your roads. All right, and with that, you have to have a plan and a financial plan and the financial documents to show that you can afford all those things, and then you can talk. Once you've got those under control, you talk about some of the romantic visions. So let me see what I got in the next slide here. All right, so I don't know what council thinks that they would do if we ended up selling that land and got 2.5 million. I think I've heard somebody said, well, we could put it back toward parks or that, and I'm a big proponent of parks, but I really think that we should get our fire department up to speed first. So I think our first money for identifying stuff would go into there, and then we need to talk about the increased tax revenues, because I've always felt that we're going to end up getting more tax revenues when the economy changed. And so you know, the things that made the city be able to afford a 2% tax rate previously was that we were in a high growth thing, and you go through a long period without high growth, and you can't afford 2%. You start spending it more. But eventually you come out of those recessions and you start bringing in those revenues again, and you can afford things the way that you were. So I just picked a couple of these reports that we get because I find these ones useful, and I look for the day when we can actually sit down as a council and get out a report like this and go through individually and see what they mean. This was presented last meeting, and if you just look at it on the bottom line there, it looks like we're going to have lots and lots of money to pay off the music center and as it goes off to the end. But I mean, we need to have a discussion so everybody knows what the assumptions are with some of the build out and such to see how that affects, because we haven't sat down and said, well, what happens if you take away that $800,000 there in 22? How's that going to affect the bottom line as we go forward out to the rest of the 15 years? And I made it so people could actually see it, so I cut off the years from 22 on. But I look for the day when we can sit down and actually start and talk about the reports that we get. This is one that I really like as well, because at the end of 2015, it looked, if you look from 2015 to 2016 and the projection, you had fund balances that were at 40,500,000 for 15 and projected to be only 37,498 at 16. So I was very concerned that we were going to end up spending $3 million of reserves and be basically $3 million in hole, because that's what this report says. And then when you actually come out and you see what the actual carryover was in 16, you see it was 46.9. So we, instead of having a $3 million loss, you had almost a $6 million, or more than a $6 million gain. So why that is something I think that we should sit down as a council and find out. So we can answer those questions and have it in a work session, and the public can see what it exactly means to everyone. And that's one of the let me see, I think the next one. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really like about our finance department and about our staff, is that they always budget conservatively. All right, so that we'd almost never have spent the amount that they budgeted. So now going from expecting 3 million to 6 million, that's a different, that's way conservative, or we kind of need to figure that out. But you know, in our discussions last year, we had this discussion that we always had a $2.3 million budget shortfall on average for, since we reduced the income tax to 2%. But if you actually look at a report like this, you'll see that the amount the fund balances went down was on average less than $1 million. Okay, so it's great that our staff budgets for $2.3 million so that we know where we're going, and that they come back and they don't spend all that money. But it's important when you have a discussion to know where you're actually going in the city as well. So I like this particular report a lot in that aspect, because it really gives you an idea of the historical not perspective, trends, I guess, is, well, the more solid form of trends uh, of what actually happened here, as opposed, we budget for 2.3 million, but your funds only went down about a million each. But it's important to know why as well, because sometimes it was because we spent better, we had more receipts because we had conservative receipts. Sometimes it was because we changed the way we had things going into accounts. So if you start charging your engineer against a different fund, that's fine. But if you transfer old money from capital fund back to the general fund because of rebates, and you hadn't done that in 20 years because it just hadn't been your practice, you're not going to see that again 3 years from now. All right, that's not going to be a continuing trend. Or if you sell a piece of property for $1.9 million and it goes into the general fund, you got to know how many other pieces of properties you have that you can sell for $1.9 million to keep it reduced. So it's not quite as simple as they budgeted $2.3 million losses and then they just didn't spend that much money. I mean, we certainly did some stuff to help out, but there is a big factor in that we didn't spend as much money as was budgeted. So that whole section was, I'd love to see more discussions on the worksheets and the reports that we have as we go forward this year, so that we know what our financial position is, and we can do. I thought I had one. It won't go back. Okay, I thought I had one where it talked about reports and such. So I'd like to see. I was very happy with the Music Center financial reports when they started coming out this summer. I thought those were very useful. I'd like to see those come out consistently. The Aquatic Center, I'd like those kind of reports to come out so we don't have to ask for them all the time, so that we can do stuff in the background instead of asking for the reports. We can do stuff like look back and see what the quote was we got from Dayton Pool to see how it would have matched to how much it cost, things in the background, just so we could do our own research so that we get satisfied how well we did on one or the other, like there. And I'm going to just say that I think, can I get off that? Yeah. Transparency, having these meetings, having these discussions in the open is important to me. And I'm not going to go into too much of what I think, but if these reports come out, if the background information for things that we're planning on buying comes up in our read aheads and stuff, I think the city is all better for it. And then back to reality. Now I'm simple. Concentrate on police and fire. Give me good roads. All right, and I like the parks. Thank you. Yes.
I appreciate you taking that time, Tom. And I appreciate a lot of the information you went over. I like some of the things you were talking about. And I think those final three things that you have up there, those are very important to me as well. But I want to make a quick comment about, you discussed the alternate modes of transportation within that certain area. And I think that really kind of makes sense with the kind of the vision down there. I think that plays in pretty well. I don't know about the Bellefontaine switch type deal, but maybe we're not looking to calm those roads down very far, but maybe calm them down to the current speed limit. Maybe that would accommodate some of those things. But thank you. Again, I appreciate that time.
All right. So we're getting to business.
We're on to business.
All right.